England's Green Crown, the Lake District. A poetic environment crafted over centuries of inspiration. The Lake District is England's largest national park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and more than 18 million people visit it every year to take pictures of its splendor, walk its walkways, and breathe its air. However, there is more to the postcard that meets the eye. The story of the people who work, live, and persevere in their homeland because of tourist externality impacts. The invisible burdens on local communities are exhausting, according to Who Pays the Lake District reports. These burdens are categorized into 7, namely energy and greenhouse gas emission, water, solid waste, sewage, natural capital, social capital, and transport. The Lake District isn't just a national park, it's a living landscape. One that speaks in the voices of its people. If we are to preserve its beauty, we must also protect its soul. In my research to discover more about tourist externality impact on the district, I met Mr. Jeremy Smith, who is head of campaign at the Friends of the Lake District. In this podcast, Mr. Smith will join me virtually to discuss more about the impact of tourist externality on the Lake District.
Welcome to our Travel and Tourism Podcast. In this episode, we will be highlighting some of tourism externalities' impact on the Lake District National Park, England. This episode is brought to you by Boateng Travel Podcast.
Welcome to the Travel and Tourism Podcast. My name is Renos and I'm your host today. Hi Jeremy, thank you for joining us today. Can I ask you to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name's Jeremy Smith. I'm the Head of Campaigns and Engagement at Friends of the Lake District. And in that role, I oversee the campaigns that we run to protect the Lake District so that people can enjoy the special qualities of this beautiful region. And I design and oversee activities that help connect people to the landscape. And if you like, to try to make more people love the landscape of the Lake District.
Okay, so according to Who Pays the Lake District report by Dr. Davina Stanford, and I quote, it said, we're asking people and organizations recognize that as well as benefiting the Lake District businesses, tourism also has significant negative impact on the environment and community of the Lake District National Park. These invisible burdens and unpaid costs to society and the environment of high visitor numbers must be addressed and maintain and sustain the Lake District culture, community landscape, and environment, which are very reasons that people visit the national park. Jeremy, can you mention some examples of the impact of tourism at the Lake District?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, some of those impacts of tourism are very visible and in your face. And I'm thinking here of people leaving litter, people fly camping by the lakeside and then leaving all the rubbish behind them. Also, issues relating to transport, the clogging up of roads by the sheer number of people coming to the Lake District in their own cars. But as well, and as you mentioned, there are also a whole load of what we might call the invisible impacts of tourism, because this is a region with a resident population of 38,000. But which receives 18 million visitors a year. And you can imagine that the tremendous strain that puts on the infrastructure, not only the roads that I've mentioned, but also on public services, on water and sewage systems. And we feel that ultimately the extent of these pressures and externalities means that the level of tourism that we have at the moment to the Lake District is exceeding, if you like, its carrying capacity. given the significant harms to the landscape and to the lived experiences of people who live here, as well as those people who visit here. Perhaps just to give you one example, the vast majority of people who come to the Lake District on holiday or for a day trip come by their own vehicle. That's 91% of people. And then once they're here, 72% of them use their own vehicle to get around. And that causes roads to be blocked. It causes damages to the verges on the side of the road. You have people parking here, there, and everywhere, blocking access for the emergency services, and also blocking access for buses, which has this sort of perverse impact that people don't see the buses as an alternative because they know that the buses are going to be behind schedule because of the number of cars. It's a vicious circle, really, that people stuck in their cars and therefore undermining the very alternative to the cars that would actually be better, not only for them personally, but also for the environment.
All right. So is tourism a good thing for the Lake Districts or a bad thing?
I mean, tourism, of course, does have benefits in terms of revenues, in terms of employment, although quite a high percentage of the jobs in tourism are relatively low paid and insecure in
Mm.
terms in the hospitality sector, as cleaners or as bar staff and so on.
Yeah.
But certainly we're not against tourism. It is indeed a part of the purpose of national parks
Yeah.
that people are able to come and to enjoy the beautiful scenery and landscape. It's about what sort of tourism that we have.
Yeah.
And then trying to have more of a sort of low impact, more regenerative tourism.
Yeah. So based on what you're saying, what are some of the actions proposed to resolve these burdens on local people?
I mean, one of the main solutions we see is to introduce um, uh, uh, some form of visitor levy,
Yeah.
whereby, in effect, those responsible for these externalities would pay towards mitigating them. And this is not an unusual way of taxing people in the sense that this is already what happens with road tax. You only pay road tax if you have a vehicle, and just you would only pay a Lake District visitor levy if you came to the Lake District. So it's targeted at specific users who are responsible in part to some of those externalities that we've talked about. I mean, another way that this is already happening is that the council tax on second homes has been increased. It's been doubled, which again is raising funds from a specific group of people, i.e., those wealthy enough to have a second home in the Lake District.
How is council tax being doubled?
Well, local councils themselves determine the rate of at
Yeah.
which they set council tax, and if someone is uh, having a second home in the Lake District, the local council will have a surcharge on the amount of council tax they pay, and that's important because the sheer number of second homes and holiday lets
Yeah.
across the Lake District means that in many parishes, more than 20% of properties are empty for most of the year. And this has hugely significant community impacts. Um, it drives up house prices by reducing the housing stock. It means that local people can't imagine their children ever being able to afford their own home in Cumbria and therefore likely to having to leave. Um, because of the number of empty properties,
Yeah.
local shops become unviable. Other services like GPs and dentists and so on may also become unviable and withdraw. You also get less of a sense of a community when a large number of properties are empty and that there just aren't the same number of people permanently living there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So basically, you're suggesting that housing is still an issue over there. So, what? How can success be measured from the solution that has currently been proposed by authorities over there?
Well, the solution we're proposing for a visitor levy, I mean, you're right to be very clear that success is not determined simply by imposing a visitor levy,
Yeah.
but by a visitor levy raising funds that then have a tangible impact in the Lake District in terms of mitigating some of those impacts of tourism and enabling, if you like, a sort of recalibration of how tourism operates in the Lake District. And there are two main options for a visitor levy. One is a charge on vehicles akin to a congestion charge already operated in various cities. And this has some advantages, particularly in the sense that it is within the powers of the local councils to introduce it at the moment. It would only raise funds for use on improving public transport, which is important, but it's only part of the range of issues, range of externalities due to tourism. The other option is a bed tax, whereby if you stay in a hotel or B&B, a small sum is added to your bill. And this is very common across many cities and regions in Europe. I went myself to the Netherlands in the summer and I paid €4 per person per night with my family in the place that we stayed. And I think many people will have done that on European holidays and would be used to it. So in many ways, that's an administratively simpler and sort of conceptually simpler option. But at the moment, it's not possible.
Yeah.
In England, it's only possible in Scotland and Wales because the devolved powers to the Scottish and Welsh governments give them that authority. The local councils in England don't have that authority at the moment. And so at the moment, the only option is a visitor vehicle charge. And that's only something that we are pushing to be introduced.
Has these solution been implemented?
Well, it's a live discussion at the moment in terms of the visitor vehicle charge. There has been a working group of the Lake District National Park Partnership, which has discussed that and come up with a paper which basically concludes in the need for further exploration of how it would work in practice. And certainly that's certainly something we will be monitoring very closely and trying to encourage local councils to move quickly on and to introduce ideally in the next year or so. And I think there is a growing recognition, not only in the Lake District, but in other parts of the UK, that levels of tourism and the impacts of tourism are becoming unsustainable, and that we do need to see change, and we do need to see visitor levies in place that help local authorities to mitigate the impacts of tourism.
How can people help to contribute to the success of the solution that authorities are proposing?
Well, they can support campaigns of organisations like my own who are asking for visitor charge and for a different model of tourism more broadly. They can get in touch with their own MPs and raise similar concerns. I know that lots of people in Cumbria this summer have raised concerns with the local councils and with their MPs around littering, fly camping, and the sheer volume of cars and the way that those cars are being parked. So there has been quite a lot of pressure being applied, and there is an increasing sense that the current model of tourism isn't working, and that and then a large part of the realization of that is that people are raising their voice and saying that enough is enough.
Yeah. So in a case whereby the levies are being implemented, do you reckon people are still going to come to the national park? And if they don't, what could be another strategies to resolve the issues over there?
I think when we look at the examples where visitor charges have been introduced in other cities and regions in Europe, it hasn't had the effect of reducing tourism numbers. And I do think that these sorts of charges have.
So it's basically not working then?
No, well, it depends. I don't think the aim isn't necessarily to reduce tourist numbers. As I said earlier, I mean, we believe in the right of all people to access the beautiful scenery in the Lake District. It's more about how they go about it, and it's more about sort of low impact tourism rather than stopping tourism or trying to cap tourist numbers. So it could be more sorts of, I mean, sometimes called eco-tourism, where people might spend their holiday repairing a dry stone wall, or at least spend one day out of a week's holiday doing some sort of voluntary activity to repair the footpaths so that they're giving something back. And then it is about some of the sort of bigger picture changes in terms of public transport, in terms of the carbon footprint of the tourist industry, ranging from the sort of food and beverage sector also through to the accommodation sector, trying to reduce the emissions and carbon footprint of all of those um, uh, elements of the tourism industry in the Lake District.
Okay. So can technology be utilized as a solution to some of the problems due to tourism externality?
I think there are certainly ways in which technology can help. It's certainly a
Yeah.
good question. I think one of the ways that would be part of the introduction of a visitor vehicle charge would be the use of automatic number plate recognition, which is already in place in many cities in the UK already. And that would allow for monitoring vehicle traffic around the Lake District and these automated levying of those charges and people being able to pay on an app or on their phone. And that would all be fairly unintrusive, if that's a word. It wouldn't involve lots of new infrastructure, not lots of new gantries and anything like that for large cameras. It can all be done in a fairly discreet way.
Yeah.
A lot of that technology is quite sophisticated now.
Yeah. Very
The
true.
other the other example I could the
Mhm.
other example I could think of is that local councils can use drones to monitor whether people are camping in areas where they shouldn't be camping or lighting fires as part of their camping experience when that's not legal in the national park. And then using that to be more targeted in how they patrol the Lake District National Park and try to catch people who are behaving in a way that they shouldn't be.
Using drones, will that not be invading people's privacy?
Um, well, I think if the purpose is to catch people doing things they shouldn't be, and then
Yeah.
to send a patrol out and tell them to move on,
Hmm.
you're not necessarily going to be um, showing their face on online or anything like that. I mean, in a sense, if they're camping in a place they shouldn't be or having a fire when they shouldn't be, to some extent, they're sort of waiving their rights to privacy.
Yeah. Mr. Jeremy, so you mentioned issues concerning housing over there. So Airbnb, for example, is having a large number of housing. My question is, do you think that targeting Airbnb as a company will contribute to the reduction of their impact rather than targeting the tourist? How do you think that the logic can work in this case? Do you understand my question?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think I mean, whether it's a question of targeting Airbnb, I mean, maybe it's more about targeting the people who are putting their properties onto Airbnb. And at the moment, it's very easy to do. You can convert your property from permanent residential use to a holiday let with very few conditions. And so we would like to see changing, if you like, the use made of your property to require a form of planning permission. And that would sort of raise the barriers to people doing that and may make fewer people do that.
Yeah. So my this might be my last question though. So how would you define, in just simple words, sustainable tourism to be like for local community or the Lake District in the future?
Well, at the moment, we have an extractive form of tourism that takes without giving back and actually brings little direct benefit to many local residents.
Mm,
And we're sort of almost locked into permanently trying to get more and more people visiting.
mm.
And I think what we want to see is, as you say, is a sort of more sustainable form of tourism that not only minimizes harms, but also gives back to the landscape. So it's partly about having a more sort of low impact way of delivering tourism, if you like.
Mm.
And it's also about encouraging people to get involved in landscape conservation as part of their holiday, and to be, whether that is helping repair dry stone walls or repair footpaths, but it's about recognizing that as well as having a right to visit the Lake District, there are responsibilities that come with that to ensure that it is as beautiful when they leave as when they came.
Okay, and my last question. So about the levies on vehicles, are local communities happy of introducing those levies on their vehicles?
Well, we ran a YouGov opinion poll of more than 2,000 people,
Mm,
and in total, 65% of people supported uh, a visitor levy in the broad sense,
mm,
and of those, more favoured a vehicle charge rather than a bed tax. And those figures held up among not only people visiting the Lake District, but also among people living in the Lake District.
mm.
I mean, our assumption is that with a vehicle charge, there would be either a special rate or a complete exemption for people living in the Lake District, or whose vehicle is registered in the Lake District. Because obviously they would be moving around in their car regularly, and it wouldn't be fair to charge them so often or at such a level. As the name suggests, it would be a visitor vehicle charge.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Jeremy, for your time. I think that will be the end of the podcast. So, if you want to listen more, if you want to know more, just visit www.watintravel.com/podcast. And yeah, so that'll be the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Jeremy.
Okay, thanks a lot. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye bye.